At the Galactic Academy, safety protocols were designed to protect prey species from predators, until humans forced everyone to ask a terrifying question about evolution itself. Conference Room 7 smelled like anxiety and recycled air, which was pretty much standard for any meeting involving the Galactic Academy Safety Committee. I am Torvin Kaula, Lavrixian administrator with 17 years of experience managing interspecies protocols, and I have never, not once in those 17 years, wanted to throw myself out an airlock more than I did on that particular Tuesday afternoon. Well, Tuesday by Earth standards. We use Earth time now because the humans insisted, and when humans insist on something, you either agree or prepare for 3 months of passive-aggressive commentary. The committee sat around the crystalline conference table like a collection of the galaxy's most nervous species. To my left, Counselor Breen Takor, a Peltharian whose face tentacles twitched whenever he felt stressed, which was always to my right Administrator Fen Hollis, a Krevian with 6 eyes that never blinked in unison, creating this unsettling cascade effect that made you think he was having a stroke. Across from me sat Junior Officer Lex Form, a young Skeldic who had only been with the Academy for 2 cycles and still believed rules could solve everything. Sweet summer child. We were discussing for the 14th time this month the mandatory environmental suit requirements for Sector 9 training exercises. 14 times. I had charts. I had graphs. I had a presentation with 47 slides, 32 of which were just different angles of the same safety equipment. The regulations are quite clear, Breen was saying, his tentacles doing this weird figure-8 pattern that meant he was about to cite something verbatim from the manual. All cadets must wear full atmospheric protection, regardless of species compatibility with the training environment. Even though Sector 9 is literally just a room with standard oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, I muttered, but nobody acknowledged my commentary because apparently common sense was not on the agenda today. That was when she walked in. Cadet Riley Chen, human, 23 Earth years old, with an expression that suggested she would rather be literally anywhere else in the galaxy. She wore the standard Academy uniform, but something about the way humans wore their clothes always looked slightly wrong, like they were perpetually 5 minutes away from taking everything off and going for a swim. Humans, and their bizarre relationship with restrictive fabric. You are late, Cadet, Lex announced, his voice high-pitched with the kind of indignation only the truly inexperienced can muster. Riley dropped into the empty chair with zero ceremony, zero apology, and approximately zero care for protocol. Traffic was murder, she said, deadpan. Some Glorbian decided to molt in the main corridor. You have not experienced true horror until you have walked through 3 inches of shed skin flakes. Fen's eyes did their creepy cascade blink thing. We called you here to discuss your repeated violations of safety protocol. Oh good, Riley said, leaning back in her chair like she was settling in for a comedy show. I was worried this was about something important. The temperature in the room, both literally and figuratively, dropped about 15 degrees. Breen's tentacles stopped moving entirely, which in Peltharian body language meant he was either terrified or about to explode, possibly both. I glanced at my datapad, reviewing the list of Riley's infractions: refusing to wear redundant breathing apparatus, declining full-body radiation shielding in environments with negligible radiation, skipping the mandatory 17-layer decontamination process when the simulation involved nothing more dangerous than replicated houseplants. The list went on, and on, and on. Cadet Chen, I began, trying to inject some diplomacy into what was clearly about to become a spectacular disaster. We understand that human risk tolerance is significantly higher than most species, but regulations exist for the safety of all cadets. Riley leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table in a posture that was somehow both casual and aggressive. Do they though? Do they really? Oh no, I knew that tone. I had heard that tone from exactly 47 other humans during my tenure here. It was the tone that preceded arguments, accusations of bureaucratic nonsense, and at least one instance of someone threatening to demonstrate the survivability of a 50-foot fall. This meeting was about to go sideways. Yes, Cadet Chen, they absolutely do, Lex said, his voice climbing another octave into what I can only describe as indignant squeaking territory. Safety protocols are established after rigorous testing and analysis. Riley nodded slowly, her expression one of mock seriousness. Right, of course. So tell me, which rigorous test determined that I need to wear a thermal regulation suit in a room that is literally 72 degrees Fahrenheit? The Gentis Accords of 2047 established that all training environments require standardized protective equipment. Breen recited, his tentacles resuming their anxious dance. Section 12, Subsection 44, paragraph 9b clearly states that you are all absolutely terrified of paper cuts. Riley interrupted, and I watched Fenn's eyes go wide in what I assume was supposed to be shock but looked more like someone had just told him his family was being held hostage by a particularly aggressive fern. Paper cuts? I asked. Against my better judgment. Minor injuries, Riley clarified, waving her hand dismissively. You people treat a stubbed toe like it is a Class 5 medical emergency. Last week I watched someone file an incident report because they got a static shock from a door panel. I have received worse injuries from putting on socks. Human durability is not the standard by which we measure safety, Fenn said. All 6 of his eyes now focused on Riley with laser precision. Your species has a notorious reputation for underestimating danger. Riley laughed. Actually laughed. It was not a polite chuckle or a nervous giggle. It was a full, genuine laugh that echoed off the walls and made Breen's tentacles curl up into tight little spirals of distress. Underestimating danger, she repeated, still grinning. That is rich coming from species who wear full hazmat suits to handle room temperature water. Water, the thing that literally falls from the sky on half the inhabited planets in this sector. Water can contain contaminants, Lex protested weakly. So can air, genius. But I do not see you walking around in a bubble. I pinched the bridge of my nose, feeling the beginning of what humans called a migraine forming behind my eyes. Cadet Chen, your dismissive attitude toward established safety measures is exactly why you are here. We need you to understand that not every species has your biological resilience. I get that, Riley said, and for a moment I thought maybe we were making progress. Then she kept talking. I totally get that you are all fragile little flower petals who need 17 layers of bubble wrap to survive a gentle breeze. What I do not get is why you think your paranoia should apply to me. Breen made a sound like a deflating balloon. It is not paranoia. It is caution. It is insanity, Riley countered. You have rules about rules about rules. I counted, by the way. To legally operate a standard beverage dispenser, I have to acknowledge 23 separate safety warnings. 23. For hot chocolate, I have operated actual heavy machinery with fewer safety requirements. Heavy machinery is regulated under different protocols, Fenn began. But Riley was on a roll now. Last month, I had to sit through a 6-hour safety briefing about emergency exit procedures. 6 hours. The emergency exits are literally doors with signs that say emergency exit on them. They are not hidden. They are not disguised as decorative panels. They are doors, with handles, that you pull. A human toddler could figure it out. Emergency procedures save lives, Lex squeaked, his voice now reaching frequencies I was not entirely sure were audible to human ears. So does common sense, but apparently that is in short supply around here. The room fell silent except for the gentle hum of the ventilation system, which was probably running overtime trying to process all the stress pheromones we were collectively producing. Breen's tentacles had formed shapes I did not even have names for. Fenn's eyes were blinking in complete chaos. No pattern whatsoever, just pure optical panic. Lex looked like he might cry, which for a Skelvic meant his skin was turning a disturbing shade of purple. And Riley sat there looking absolutely pleased with herself, like she had just won an argument at a debate championship instead of insulting the entire foundation of Galactic Academy safety culture. Cadet Chen, I said, trying to keep my voice level and professional, your attitude is unacceptable. These protocols exist because countless beings have been injured or killed in training accidents throughout galactic history. Riley leaned back, crossing her arms. And how many of those beings were human? I opened my mouth, closed it, checked my datapad, scrolled through 17 years of incident reports. 0. The answer was 0. That is not the point, I said. But even I could hear how weak that sounded. That is exactly the point, Riley said. And then she made her fatal mistake. She stood up quickly, gesturing emphatically with both arms. You cannot apply your safety standards to a species that evolved dodging apex predators for fun. And that is when her uniform sleeve slipped down her shoulder. Time did this funny thing where it seemed to simultaneously speed up and slow down. Like the universe itself could not decide whether to rush toward disaster or savor the moment before everything went catastrophically wrong. Riley's sleeve had shifted maybe 3 inches. 3 inches. That was all it took. On her left shoulder, now partially visible, was ink, black and gray shading, artistic and detailed, depicting something that made every single alarm bell in my evolutionary biology start screaming at maximum volume. A predator. A Terran apex predator. Specifically, from what I could see of the design, Some kind of large feline with fangs and forward-facing eyes and that distinctive look that every prey species in the galaxy recognized on an instinctual genetic run-or-die level. Breen saw it first. His tentacles did not just stop moving, they went completely rigid, extending outward in what I recognized as the Peltharian freeze response. His breathing holes snapped shut. All of them. Simultaneously. By the holy voids, he whispered. His voice barely audible. Fenn's 6 eyes locked onto Riley's shoulder with such intensity that I was genuinely concerned he might injure himself. All 6 pupils contracted to pinpoints. His breathing became rapid, shallow, panicked. Lex made a sound. I cannot adequately describe the sound with words. It was somewhere between a whimper, a gasp, and the noise you make when you realize you have made a terrible mistake but it is too late to fix it. His purple skin went pale, almost translucent, and I could see his circulatory system working overtime. "What?" Riley said, looking around at us with genuine confusion. "What is wrong with all of you?" "Your shoulder," I managed to say, my own voice coming out higher than I intended. "Your shoulder, there is something on your shoulder." Riley glanced down, saw her exposed tattoo, and had the audacity to look completely unbothered. "Oh yeah, my tiger. Got it when I was 19. What about it?" "What? What about it? What about it?" She asked what about it like she was discussing a mild weather pattern and not the fact that she had permanently marked her body with the image of a creature that could and historically did hunt and kill humans for sport. "That is a predator," Fenn said, his voice shaking. "That is an apex predator. That is a killing machine designed by evolution to hunt, name and consume living flesh." "Well yeah," Riley said, shrugging, which made the tattoo move, which made Breen make another one of those deflating balloon sounds. "It is a tiger, Panthera tigris. Beautiful animals. This one is specifically a Siberian tiger. Got the reference from a documentary. The artist really captured the—" "Why?" Lex interrupted, his voice cracking. "Why would you willingly mark yourself with that? Why would you choose to carry the image of death on your body?" Riley blinked. Once. Twice. Then she started laughing again. But this time it was different. This was the laugh of someone who had just realized they were dealing with a level of misunderstanding so profound that it bordered on cosmic comedy. "Oh my God," she said between laughs. "Oh my God, you are all freaking out about my tattoo. My tattoo. I have had this thing for 4 years and nobody on this entire station said anything. Most beings would not get close enough to notice," I admitted. "And those who did probably filed psychological trauma reports." "Psychological trauma reports," Riley repeated flatly. "About a predator," Breen corrected, his tentacles still rigid. "About the visual representation of a killing machine permanently etched into your dermal layer. About the fact that you willingly chose to become a walking memorial to death itself." Riley's laugh died down, replaced by an expression I could not quite read. Confusion, maybe, or perhaps the dawning realization that this cultural gap was wider than she thought. "It is just a tattoo," she said slowly, like she was explaining something to children. "It is ink. Under my skin. It is art. It is not actually dangerous." That was when Lex moved. He did not mean to, I think. It was pure instinct. He lunged backward so quickly that his chair tipped over, clattering against the floor with a metallic crash that echoed through the conference room. His hand slammed against the emergency alert panel on the wall. "Oh no. Oh no 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 no." The panel lit up red, not the gentle amber warning light. Not the yellow caution indicator. Full, red, emergency, alert. Klaxons started blaring, loud, aggressive, impossible to ignore klaxons that meant one thing and one thing only, immediate threat to station safety. "No," I said, jumping to my feet. "No no no. Cancel that. Cancel the alert." But it was too late. The panel required biometric confirmation to cancel, and Lex was currently pressed against the far wall, his purple skin now almost white, his eyes wide with prey species terror, completely unable to process anything except the overwhelming need to flee. Riley looked around the room, at the flashing lights, at the blaring alarms, at 3 senior staff members having what could only be described as synchronized panic attacks. "You have got to be kidding me," she said. The conference room doors burst open. Security was here. This was about to get so much worse. Security Team Alpha consisted of 5 beings who were, to their credit, very good at their jobs. Their job, unfortunately, was to respond to emergency threats with maximum efficiency and minimal questions, which meant they burst into Conference Room 7 with weapons drawn, scanning for danger, ready to neutralize whatever horror had triggered a station-wide alert. They found Riley Chen standing next to an overturned chair, looking annoyed. "Threat assessment," barked Commander Vos Kellen. A Krevian who was built like someone had taken a standard humanoid frame and added about 40% more muscle mass. "Report." Lex pointed at Riley with a shaking hand. "Predator. She has a predator. On her body. Permanent. She chose it." Voss's weapon, which had been pointed at the ceiling in standard ready position, immediately swung toward Riley. 3 other security officers did the same. The 5th officer, a Vrexian like me named Senna, looked at Riley, looked at the panicking committee members, then looked at me with an expression that clearly said, "Please tell me this is not what I think it is." "Everyone calm down," I said, raising my hands in what I hoped was a universal gesture of de-escalation. "There is a misunderstanding." Misunderstanding. Breen's tentacles had started moving again, but now they were flailing wildly, slapping against the table and his own face in what appeared to be the Paltharian equivalent of hysterical flapping. "She carries the mark of death. There is no misunderstanding. It is right there, on her shoulder, staring at us, judging us, planning our demise." "It is a tattoo," Riley said, her voice climbing in volume in frustration. "It is a picture. A picture. Why are weapons being pointed at me because of a picture?" "Stand down," Voss said, though his weapon did not lower. "Explain the threat." "There is no threat," Riley insisted. "She has marked herself with a predator," Fenn said, all 6 of his eyes now producing what I can only assume were stress tears. "A Terran apex predator. The image alone violates 17 psychological safety protocols." 17. Riley threw her hands up. "Of course it is 17. Everything with you people is 17 something." More security arrived. Then more. Then someone must have hit the general quarters alarm because suddenly the corridor outside was filled with cadets, staff, and what looked like the entire medical team rolling a stretcher that nobody was currently on but might need very soon given the cardiovascular stress levels in this room. "Everybody stop," I shouted, my voice cutting through the chaos. "Stop moving. Stop talking. Just stop." Somehow, miraculously they did. I took a breath. "Riley, please explain to everyone what a tattoo is and why you have one." Riley looked at me like I had just asked her to explain why water was wet. "A tattoo is a form of body art. You inject ink under the skin in patterns. Humans have been doing it for thousands of years. It is cultural. It is personal. It is decorative. I got this one because I like tigers and I think they are beautiful and powerful and I wanted that symbolism on my body. That is it. End of explanation." Silence. Complete. Total silence except for the gradually quieting alarm klaxons. Then Senna, bless her logical Vrixian brain, asked the question everyone was thinking. "But why a predator?" "Because predators are cool," Riley said, like this was the most obvious thing in the galaxy. "Because they are magnificent animals. Because humans have this whole complicated relationship with apex predators where we respect them and fear them and also kind of identify with them because newsflash, humans are also apex predators." That statement landed like a photon torpedo. "You identify with predators," Voss said slowly. "Of course we do. We are predators. Forward-facing eyes, pursuit hunting, tool use, pack tactics. The whole deal. Did none of you read the human biology briefings?" "We read them," I said weakly. "We thought they were exaggerated for effect." Riley stared at me. "You thought they were exaggerated? You thought our entire evolutionary history is pursuit predators who ran animals to exhaustion and used tools to kill things bigger and stronger than us? You thought that was exaggerated?" "It seemed unrealistic," Breen admitted. "Unrealistic," Riley repeated. "We literally climbed to the top of Earth's food chain by being too stubborn to die and too smart to quit. We domesticated wolves. Do you understand what that means? We looked at other apex predators and said, hey, let us be friends. And then we made predators into pets. We turned killing machines into companions that sleep in our beds and eat from our hands." Another cadet pushed through the crowd. Human. Male. Tall. His name was something like Jack Brenner, and he took one look at the scene, sighed and said, "Who showed their tattoo?" "It was an accident," Riley protested. "It is always an accident with you," Jack said, then turned to address the room. "Okay, everybody, show of hands. Who else here has never seen a human tattoo before?" Every non-human hand, tentacle, appendage and manipulator arm went up. Jack pulled up his sleeve, revealing an intricate design of what looked like a bird, wings spread, covering his entire forearm. Half the room gasped. Someone in the back fainted. "I think it was "It is just body art," Jack explained patiently. "We do this Humans do this. It is normal for us. Yes, sometimes we get predators, sometimes we get prey animals, sometimes we get abstract designs or words or symbols that mean something personal. It is decoration. It is not a threat assessment. But why predators? Voss asked again, his weapon finally lowering. Riley and Jack exchanged a look. Then Riley said, because on Earth, respecting predators kept us alive. Understanding them, learning from them, sometimes becoming them. That is how humans survived. So yeah, we put them on our bodies, we honor them, we acknowledge what they are and what we are. The medical team had apparently decided the stretcher was unnecessary and left. Security was slowly holstering weapons, though they still looked uncertain. The committee members were in various stages of processing this information, which ranged from Breen's tentacles gradually uncurling to Lex still pressed against the wall like he was trying to phase through it. So, Senna said carefully, to clarify, the tattoo is not a warning that you are dangerous. Riley considered this. I mean, I am dangerous. All humans are dangerous. That is kind of our thing. But the tattoo is not the warning. The tattoo is just art. That is not reassuring, Fen muttered. It is not meant to be reassuring. Riley shot back. It is meant to be honest. Another human cadet appeared, female, shorter, with bright pink hair that definitely violated at least 3 uniform regulations that nobody was brave enough to enforce. Her name was something like Cole Winters, and she was eating what appeared to be a sandwich. Did Riley do the thing where she forgets her tattoo freaks everyone out? Yes. About 15 voices said simultaneously. Cole took another bite of her sandwich. Classic Riley. The chaos was beginning to settle into something resembling order when the conference room doors opened one more time and Academy Director Thane Reston walked in. Director Reston was a Quellan, which meant he was approximately 7 feet tall, had 4 arms, and possessed the kind of calm, measured demeanor that suggested he had seen every possible catastrophe the universe could throw at him and had simply decided to be disappointed rather than surprised. He looked at the overturned furniture, the security team, the panicking committee members and the 2 humans standing in the middle of it all looking exasperated. Someone please tell me why the entire northern sector thinks we are under attack, he said, his voice carrying that special quality of exhausted authority that only came from decades of managing interspecies incidents. Everyone started talking at once. Breen's tentacles were gesticulating wildly. Lex was still stammering about protocols. Voss was trying to give a tactical assessment. Riley and Jack were attempting to explain human cultural practices. Cole was just eating her sandwich and watching the show. Reston held up all 4 hands. Silence fell immediately. One at a time, he said, pointing at me. Torvin, as the least hysterical person present, please explain. I straightened my posture, cleared my throat, and said, Cadet Riley Chen has a tattoo of a Terran predator on her shoulder. We did not react well. Reston looked at Riley. Show me. Riley pulled her sleeve down further, fully exposing the tiger tattoo. The detail was honestly remarkable. The artist had captured the musculature, the intensity of the eyes, the sense of coiled power that even I, a species that had never encountered a Terran tiger, could recognize as dangerous. Reston examined it for a long moment. Then he said, that is a Siberian tiger, Panthera tigris altica, endangered species, known for its solitary hunting behavior and tremendous strength. Capable of taking down prey 3 times its own body weight, also known for avoiding human contact when possible despite being perfectly capable of killing humans. Everyone stared at him. What? Reston said mildly. I read. I prepare. I actually study the species we admit to this academy instead of assuming my evolutionary prejudices are universal truth. Breen's tentacles drooped in what I recognized as shame. Sir, Lex ventured, his voice still shaky. With respect. The presence of predator imagery creates psychological distress among prey species personnel. With respect to your Officer Vorm, perhaps prey species personnel need to process their evolutionary trauma and recognize that tattoos are not actual threats. Reston turned to address the entire room. We are an interspecies academy. We train beings from 47 different worlds with 47 different evolutionary backgrounds. Some species evolved as prey, some as predators, some as scavengers, some as plant eaters, some as something that defies easy classification. We cannot function if we allow our base instincts to override our rational thinking. But the visceral response is difficult to control, Fen said quietly. I understand that, Reston replied, his tone softening. I genuinely do. Evolution is powerful. Millions of years of survival instinct do not disappear because we invented space travel, but understanding is the first step to coexistence. He turned to Riley. Cadet Chen, can you explain why humans choose to mark themselves with predator imagery? Riley nodded, seeming to appreciate being asked rather than accused. Predators represent strength, independence, survival. Humans have always had this thing where we respect what can kill us. It is weird, I know, but it is true. We see a tiger, we recognize the danger, but we also see the beauty, the power, the grace. We want to embody those qualities. Getting a predator tattoo is like saying I acknowledge the harsh reality of nature and I choose to carry that reminder with me. It is not a threat display, Breen asked, his tentacles finally relaxing. Not even remotely, Riley said. If anything, it is personal. It is about who I want to be, not about scaring anyone else. Reston nodded. And what about the rest of you? He gestured to the non-human staff. Can you acknowledge that human cultural practices are not attacks on your safety? Slowly, reluctantly, heads nodded, tentacles waved in agreement. Lex peeled himself off the wall. As for the safety protocols, Reston continued, looking at me. Perhaps we should review which regulations are genuinely necessary and which are, as Cadet Chen eloquently put it, paranoia. Sir? I said, surprised. If a human can survive unprotected in an environment that we are claiming requires 17 layers of protective equipment, perhaps our risk assessment is flawed. Perhaps we have created safety theater instead of actual safety. He looked at Riley. That does not mean you get to ignore every rule, Cadet. Understood, sir. Riley said. Good. Now everyone back to work. Security, stand down. Committee, meet me tomorrow to discuss protocol reform. And someone please cancel the station-wide alert before we have visiting delegates thinking we cannot manage our own cadets. People began filing out, the tension slowly dissipating. Jack clapped Riley on the shoulder, right on top of the tattoo which made Breen flinch but not flee. Progress. Cole finished her sandwich and said, you know, you could just wear long sleeves. I could, Riley agreed. But where is the fun in that? Reston overheard and allowed himself a small smile. Humans, he muttered. But it sounded almost affectionate. As I gathered my data pads and prepared to leave, I realized something. The tattoo had not changed. Riley had not become more or less dangerous. The only thing that had changed was our understanding. Sometimes that was enough. 3 weeks later, I found myself back in conference room 7, reviewing the revised safety protocols with the committee. We had cut approximately 37% of the redundant requirements. Humans would now be assessed based on human tolerances, not galactic prey species standards. Revolutionary, I know. Riley Chen had become something of a station legend. Her tattoo, once a source of terror, was now a conversation piece. I had personally witnessed 4 different cadets, all from prey species backgrounds, ask her about it. She explained every time with surprising patience. Some even took pictures, though they maintained a respectful distance. Breen's tentacles no longer seized up when Riley entered a room. Fen could look at her without all 6 eyes going into panic mode. Lex had actually apologized, which for a Skelvic was basically unheard of. Growth all around. Jack Brenner had started a weekly session called Human Cultural Orientation, which was just him and other human cadets explaining Earth things that confused everyone else. Last week's topic was coffee. This week was contact sports. Next week someone was threatening to explain the concept of petting zoos, which I suspected would require medical staff on standby. The humans, for their part, seemed amused by all of it. They wore their predator status with casual pride, never aggressive but never apologetic either. They simply existed as themselves, and slowly, incrementally the rest of us learned to exist alongside them. I caught Riley in the corridor yesterday. She was wearing a sleeveless shirt. The tiger on her shoulder seemed to stare at me, frozen in ink. Forever powerful, forever beautiful, forever just art on skin. Getting brave, Torvin, she said, grinning. Getting educated, I corrected. Same thing, she replied. And you know what? Maybe it was. Humans. They argued about safety protocols, wore death on their shoulders and somehow made us all better for it. Absolutely terrifying. Absolutely necessary. Welcome to the Galactic Academy. The lesson was simple, but uncomfortable. Not every fear is a warning, and not every rule is wisdom. Sometimes the safest thing an institution can do is learn instead of react.